today on Shelf Life, my guest is a gentleman who, for most of us, needs no introductions. If you grew up in Jamaica in the 60s, 70s, 80s, even the 90s, the name, the Honorable R. Danny Williams, will mean something to you. That name is synonymous with the insurance industry in Jamaica. And he was the founder and president of Life of Jamaica, which is now Sagicor. To detail all of his accolades and all his honors would take me all day. And so I won't be able to do that, but he deserved every single one of those honors. In reading his biography, I Tried to Make a Difference, which was written by Sandy McIntosh. I learned so much about the man himself, so much I would never have thought of. I'm honored to have with me today, R. Danny Williams. Welcome to Shelf Life, where Caribbean authors tell their story. Oh, welcome, Mr. R. Danny Williams. Danny, I am so thrilled to have you on my show. As I said to my viewers when I was starting, if you grew up in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, right into today, and you don't know the name R. Danny Williams, it means that you never grew up. It means that you never come from Jamaica and you don't know nothing at all. Welcome to Shelf Life.
Thank you, my dear. It's a pleasure to be with you.
This book gives us such great insight into who you are as a person, because growing up, you know, R. Danny Williams, the R. Danny Williams building, the LOJ buildings were landmarks, but we never really know anything about you. So this is our chance to get to really know you and who you are. Growing up in the 30s, what was that like for you? Family life?
Well, I was born in 1934, and then the war came in 1939 when I was only 5 years old. And so I remember the 30s as being the war years.
Okay.
And because that was a time when everything was short and in terms of imports, but Jamaica was producing a lot for itself.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like my 70s years.
We were never short of food or anything like that. But you know, when rice came into a neighborhood, a bag of rice, everybody shared it.
Okay.
So I remember that period in the 30s, as I said, born 34. The war started 39. I was only about 5 years old. And then it went on until I was about 11 years old. So I remember that period as being a period where people just simply worked together and would listen every 6 o'clock every afternoon to the BBC shortwave radio as to what was happening in the war. And people just had to make life for themselves. Nobody was going anywhere. German U-boats were out there, you know, just outside our shores. So people just stayed put.
That is interesting.
And then worked together, you know.
That's interesting because you rarely ever hear anybody talk about the war years from a Jamaica perspective. You know, you kind of think of the war as being over there, so somewhere, and it never have anything to do with me and you. But it's nice to hear you talk about that. What about your family? How big a family? What was it like growing up in terms of your family?
Mother, father, 2 sisters, and myself. And my mother came from a fairly large family. A very large family, in fact. And we were close. As a family, generally, we were very close. And as I said, during those war years, nobody was going abroad or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So the members of the family were here, and you visited with each other. We had a happy family. As you know, and as you read in the book, we were not wealthy people. My father was an accounting clerk at JPS. My mother never had a formal schooling like St. Andrew High and so on. She went to some private schooling, and at 15 or 16, she started. She was a good dressmaker, seamstress, and she was very good. I mean, she's one of these people that could just stand up beside you with the fabric and yeah, fine, and then just go and cut it, you know.
I had an aunt like that.
So we had, she did her dressmaking from home. My father, as I said, worked, and we always had guests in our house. We always had boarders in because we needed the extra revenue. But we were never hungry. We were always comfortable. I remember us being very happy, tell you the truth.
In fact, as you talk about borders, as you talk about having borders, there's a part in your book where you talk about your bed actually being in the passageway because
right.
You had borders. And it's funny reading stuff like that because we always just think of people who have reached a certain status in life as if they were born there, you know?
Yes.
And
yes.
so many of us didn't come from money, but we don't know that. You know, people see you at a certain stage of life and they think, oh, have money. But they don't understand that, you know, you started somewhere humble. And so that was wonderful to be able to read, is that, you know, you came from, in fact, as we talk about started humble, you started being an entrepreneur from a very young age. Tell me the cigarette story, because that was funny.
Well, the fact of the matter was, as I said, we didn't have a great deal. We had enough, but we didn't have a great deal. I wanted more pocket money. And my father said, I can't give it to you. And so he says, well, as I came also from a family where a lot of my mother's family were small entrepreneurs. One ran a gas station and things like that. And so we had it sort of in our blood that, you know, if you must go into some kind of business if you want to make some money.
Okay.
And my mother's father was a merchant. And so it kind of ran in the blood, you might say. And so he said, well, he and I sat down, discussed it, came up with the idea that at that time, you know, you didn't have motor cars. There were no motor cars around. Mm-hmm. Everybody rode a bicycle. We didn't have any access to the store just down the road kind of thing. And so we came up with the idea. And I should tell you also in those days, everybody smoked.
Yes, it was that time. Actually.
That time where everybody smoked cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
And so we came up with the idea of why not distribute cigarettes in the neighborhood. And on top of that, in the Holman Road area where I was living, a lot of new little houses were being built. So you had a lot of workmen out there who would buy cigarettes from you during the day. And my helper kept the business going for me when I was at school because, you know, guys would come by and buy a stick of cigarette. But
Jamaica, I think, is probably the only place I know where you can buy one stick of cigarette. If you started, is you.
So I carried on the business from there and did well. I used to distribute cigarettes to those who lived in the homes around. Mm-hmm. Twice a week, Wednesdays and Saturdays. Took my bicycle and rode around. And end of the month, I would go and collect. My father had financed the business, you know, with a couple of cartons of cigarettes. And that was my
capital.
Business. But I will tell you this, I saved £100 out of that, which was a lot of money in those days, out of my cigarette distribution business.
That's a whole heap of money back then, you know. So
yes,
let us put that in terms that the young people today can understand. So £100 back then would be like having what? About $100,000 today?
US.
Wow.
No,
see?
No. £100 then was.
I'm just thinking in terms of what it would buy today, you know?
Yeah, probably
probably about $100,000 worth of groceries and appliances and stuff. That was a lot of money because I'm from the pounds, pence, and shilling and pence era. And I can remember, you know, threepence patty, threepence cocoa bread, and sixpence drink. And he a penny to go to shop to buy sweetie. So we're talking about a whole heap of money back then. So you've been an entrepreneur from a long time.
I think once you mentioned, you know, that a patty was a threepence, 3 pence. It was 3 out of 12 pence in a shilling.
Yes.
And there were 20 shillings in a pound. Mm-hmm. And to have £100, it gives you a relevance that way.
Yeah, you can multiply it by patty. You know, when I was raising my kids, I used to equate things to chicken, you know. Am I going to buy that or not? No, that can buy 1 chicken. And that is 5 dinners. So no, I'm not buying it because I need the 5 dinners. So yes, I get it. We equate it to patty. So you got into the business of retail, and you also at one point were working in some kind of manufacturing kind of setting, but you did quite a few things, and then you found out, you realized that you had this love of selling. Now, for me, your story of how you got into insurance was really, really ingenious. And I don't want to give away the whole book because I want them to buy the book. But I wanted to share that story of how you actually got into insurance when you really should not have been selling insurance.
Well, actually, from I was about 16, my brother-in-law, my sister who had gotten married, and my brother-in-law lived with us. Because again, it was a period of time where, you couldn't afford to go out and rent an apartment for yourself. So they lived at home with us. He was in the life insurance business selling, and he'd bring the books home. And I started reading the books that he brought home. Well, as I said, I came from a family of people who were always involved in selling. I had had my successful business. So this idea of selling and so on was just natural for me. And so I started reading all these books. And then I started, remember, at this time I'm in 5th form, 6th form. And some boys are leaving school at 5th form. In those days, very few went on to 6th form. Right. And they'd go and get a job. Graduating from JC, they would go and get a job in the civil service, which was a very important job to get at that time. And I would introduce him to these boys who had got their first jobs and help him to make a sale. I don't have to say that I must admit that I didn't do it for free.
Clearly.
You had to pay a spotter's fee
yes.
for doing it. So I became even more interested because, as I said, I never had a lot of money, so I knew that I had to do things to make extra money in order to do what I wanted to do. And so that was how I became interested in the business. And then when I left school, finally at age 18,
stick a pin for me, Danny. And you went to JC, was it?
Yes.
Okay, of course. He says that like there's no other school. You realize that?
Well, to me, there is no other school.
Boy, me said
Jamaica College, yes.
Okay, go ahead. Keep going.
Yes, so when I did leave school, I got a job with my friend Desmond Mayor's father, Gerald Mayor, in the accounting firm. That didn't last 2 months because I used to drop asleep. I just couldn't take the boredom of
boring.
And then I had another opportunity to work at Caymanas Estates. They were establishing an anhydrous alcohol plant, which was a substitute for gasoline. And again, I had quite a drama there, and eventually. But the truth of the matter was that even during that period of time, because I used to work shifts, night shifts and so on, I would come into town during the day and do some work along with my brother-in-law. And so I maintained that contact throughout that period. But the idea of Mr. and Mrs. Williams, the son that they'd sacrificed so much for, to send to JC, and my mother had worked into all hours at night, making clothes for people in order to pay the school fees. He should go to university.
And be a doctor.
Oh, well, become a professional of some kind.
Because back then, doctor, lawyer, you had to be a professional of some kind. And back then, insurance wasn't even considered a professional.
No, insurance was not considered as a worthwhile profession as such. And I did get admitted to Guelph University to do agricultural chemistry, but the truth was they just didn't have the money. We couldn't put the money together. And so I just continued in the insurance business. And that in itself was a bit of a drama because I was only 18 and a half years old. And you couldn't get licensed. You couldn't get a bond until you were 21.
Okay. And
so I used to sell part-time through my brother-in-law.
Using his bond.
Using his contract. And so Well, that eventually, we worked that out eventually by my father guaranteeing the bond, without going into all the details.
Yes, no
And so I
details
was able
here.
to get my own contract. I actually got it on my birthday, the 3rd of July, 1953. So I finally got my own contract. And tell you the truth, I was successful from the word go.
Well,
And
that does not surprise anybody, because to have reached where you reached, you had to have had that drive and known that success was just something you were not going to live without. And when you read the book and just the step from even the stories about the alcohol plant, I'm not giving it away because it is hilarious and you have to get the book, and I'm not giving away the whole book. But even that, just knowing that sometimes people don't realize the stepping stones that you take and that you have to take to where you want to go. And I think your life and this book should be required reading. I think I've said that to one other person only. Should be required reading for our young people. This book should be something that them read in high school, to understand that when you get out of high school and when you go to college and get out of college, there's not this big pie waiting for you. You still have to put in the work. You know, you still have to put in the work, and your work paid off because you ended up being the founder of something we all know about. People still call Sagicor LOJ.
Jamaica, yes, yes.
People still call
That's
it the
true,
LOJ
yes.
building. So how did Life of Jamaica come about?
Well, I was in the life insurance business. I saw where, although the business was successful and many of us were making a decent living out of it, that the business wasn't doing anything for Jamaica. Because every dollar that we earned was being shipped to Canada or to England, because we had about 17 companies from this Canada, America, and England in Jamaica. We only had one small Jamaican company, Jamaica Mutual, that wasn't doing all that marvelously well. And all the funds were not being used to develop Jamaica at all, but were being shipped abroad. We did nothing for ourselves. Not even our envelopes were bought local. I tell you better, even the urine samples were sent abroad to be tested. That was the degree at which we operated. And so I saw this need. Prior to that, I'd had the experience, it was a couple of years before, of being invited by Douglas Fletcher to become, because at the time I had done very well, I was fairly well known. The Life of Jamaica, North American Life had done so well. So I was fairly well known as a young budding businessman. And so Douglas Fletcher invited me as the only little youngster to the board of the newly formed Citizens Bank.
Okay.
And so I lived through that experience of forming a company, which I must tell you taught me a great deal. And
especially in Jamaica.
To form Life of Jamaica.
Especially in Jamaica, where it's not a simple task.
No. And so I saw this opportunity and I said, this doesn't make sense. We're not doing anything. We're not developing our country. And in all fairness, I must give a certain credit to Eddie Siaga, because a year before, Eddie Siaga had spoken to me along these lines and said, you know, Danny, you're the obvious person to do it. Why don't you form? At the time, I told him I wasn't ready. And subsequently, when I was ready and I went to see him, I want to give him the credit because he gave me support, without which I could never have formed Life of Jamaica. And so we went on to form the company so as to be able to create the professions. We didn't have any actors in Jamaica. We had one actress who had just come back. That was Daisy Coke. Otherwise, we didn't have any actors. We didn't have any investment companies. You know, we had Citizens Bank had just been formed with 50% ownership in Jamaica. Just prior to that, BNS, knowing that Citizens Bank was coming, they quickly popped and went and offered 25% of their shares to the Jamaican public. So things were starting to happen.
Right.
And you must remember, this is 1970.
Yes.
We got independence in 62. And let me tell you, that was one of the greatest times I've lived in Jamaica. Because everybody was all about, we must start doing things for the country.
It was a wonderful time.
Place.
That whole late 60s into the 70s was just a wonderful time of coming into our own as Jamaicans, learning
Right.
how to own as Jamaicans, and learning that we can own and that we can be our own masters in Jamaica. Because I'm a 60s baby, 70s girl. So that was my period of, boy, Jamaicans, we can do this. Boy, you mean we can do that? We can do that, you know? And so Life of Jamaica was, of course, where I got my first health insurance, like most people I know. And so for us, it was just a real awakening that, wow, this Jamaican insurance company, because, you know, our parents had insurances with all the other companies
Yes.
that were about from wherever, and they come from all over the place. So Life of Jamaica was something special because it was
Very.
Jamaican, it was our own. And if I remember, you launched in June of 1970.
Correct, yes.
Yes.
A
Beautiful.
big launch.
Yes, it was massive. I mean, you know, it didn't
We
matter where.
flooded Jamaica that day.
I
Planes
know.
flew overhead with streamers. Every radio station blasted it. And remember, at that time, it wasn't hard to cover the whole country.
And we only had one TV station, so it didn't matter. When you turn it on, the only thing you could see was LOJ.
Everybody had to look at it.
You had no choice. There was no internet to turn away to, no YouTube to watch, no video.
No.
Funny when I think about the fact that in 1970 we never even had VCR. You know, you turn on JBC when it turn on, and when the night come and the anthem come and it got to the color bar, it's done. You got to your bed.
Yes,
You're
so right. But you know, it was a wonderful period in which to have lived, and I'm so happy that I was fortunate enough to have lived through that particular period, and to have had the opportunity to have formed Life of Jamaica, because Life of Jamaica has meant a lot to Jamaica.
Yes, it has.
You know, it is as a result of Life of Jamaica that the other insurance, some Oliver Jones and the others, formed local companies. It was as a result of Life of Jamaica and Island Life and so on, taking over the foreign companies.
Yes.
We bought out all of them.
Yes.
We were able to acquire all of them. And so it became a truly local industry.
It was a wonderful time, and what you did and all the others who followed was just an amazing thing. But before we continue to talk about life insurance and end the show on life insurance, there is so much more to this book. That was fascinating, by the way, was reading about the LOJ, because, you know, as again, you grew up and LOJ is a household name. But there was so much more. There's so much more about you and the fact that you are very, very big into people and helping people, and to be able to read about all the people you've mentored and helped and done so much for. This compassion that you have for people. And a lot of people think that, you know, life insurance people are really just about trying to get you to buy a policy. But what I have found out from my personal experience and many friends that I have that are in insurance is that they really do care. They honestly care. And I think you were able to pass that on to the people who worked with you. Has that culture of caring continued? Because you're the chairman of the board for Sagicor now, correct?
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. But did that culture pass down?
No, you know, so they're putting me on the shelf now.
Well, this is shelf life, so it's perfectly for you. But that culture of honestly caring, has that culture passed down even though you are no longer actively involved? In
Sagicor? I mean, for example, Sagicor has a foundation. I'm actually chairman of that foundation.
Oh, okay.
And we give, we invest a lot in education and health. And we've just given 50 scholarships. I mean, just to give you an example.
Right.
Tertiary scholarships. We invest 1% of the total net profit of the company in charitable things. But the truth of the matter is that I saw my parents live the kind of life where you're always helping those who were in need.
Yes.
We very often had to help our own relatives who were in need. Sometimes had to come and live with us because that was necessary, as many Jamaican families have experienced. So my mother and father were were very religious,
Mm-hmm.
not born-again Christians, because Seventh-day Adventists and Roman Catholic, but they were always involved in the charitable affairs
Let me
of their
stick a pin right there, because I'm a Christian. I have issues with the whole idea of this not being born again and that not being born again. To me, Christians are Christians. But I tell you one thing, with a Catholic background, I grew up in the Catholic Church, and I have never seen any set of people, whatever other issues they may have, give as much as they. And that's, for me, that's where I learned compassion. That's where I learned to give. And so, yes, I agree with you that having that religious background, and my parents were like yours too. They gave away, my mother gave away everything. If I miss a dress, it's gone, it's gone. She would look at me and say, I don't see you wear that dress for about 6 months now. Christine needed that dress. Go for my dress, gone. So that whole thing of giving is so very much a part of you from everything I've read in the book.
Well, I was also exposed to the fact that my eldest sister was mongoloid or Down syndrome.
Okay.
And so I was exposed to handicapped people as well. So I had that experience. My father-in-law, Lister Muir, was chairman of the Jamaica Association for the Deaf. I offered my service to him when I was only about 20 years old, and I got involved. He died as a young man, and the Bishop Gibbs insisted that I take over the chairmanship of the Jamaica Association for the Deaf. But the truth of the matter was that throughout our life, we've always lived in that kind of situation where you shared.
Yes.
And as I say, from the war years, from family, that was just part of the way of life. And so I've always said that I must always be doing something. And as a result, I was involved in the Junior Chamber, Jamaica Association Desk, the Jamal program.
Oh,
that was
that program.
Interesting program.
Yes, loved that program. I taught Jamal.
Oh, you taught Jamal?
Yeah,
good.
As a high school student, we taught Jamal. We had a whole
all of my children who were high school students at the time taught Jamal. That was a wonderful program.
And a program that should come back. I also
had the privilege of working with Dr. Joyce Robinson, a fantastic woman. So, and I've always been involved. You know, I got involved with the university through my mentor, Douglas Fletcher, and his son. We decided that Jamaica needed a private facility. And so the Tony Sway Swing was born, and we raised all the capital locally to do it. And so it has just been part of my life to devote a portion of time every day, every week, every month, every year to things that helped. And I've enjoyed it. You see, I've always felt life insurance business was helping people.
And it is.
I regarded the insurance business as not as a means of making a living, but I felt it was helping people. And so everything that I was associated with, I enjoy helping people. I don't even remember when I helped somebody.
And that's the truth. That's a true test of doing it from the heart, is that you don't remember, you don't keep score. But listen, I have to get to you and Shirley, because the love story of Danny and Shirley is a part of the book. In 2 sentences, because them have to read it. Tell us about your beloved Shirley.
Met her by crashing her 13th birthday party. When I was 14 and a half, took a shine to her. We would meet at little parties in between. At her 16th birthday party, by this time I've got to know her, so I got a legitimate invitation. And, she looked like she was taking a shine to me too. So by this time, at her 16th birthday, I made my pitch, and she rejected me on the basis that she had noticed me at the parties that I was a flirt. And so I set out to prove to her I wasn't a flirt. The result was that a week before I was 20, we got married. She was wasn't pregnant at the time.
She cut off the flirting, man. She end the flirting good and proper. Done, done, done.
Knock out flirting, man. Knock out all my flirting. And so and we've been married now for 66 years. She's been a phenomenal support for me. She's been supported me in everything that I've ever done. And there've been a lot of times where if I were her, I would have left me. Because, there were some really hard times because of all the things I was involved in and the lack of time for family and home. But because we had 6 children too, remember?
Right.
We had 5 children in the first 6 or 7 years of marriage.
Wow.
So we didn't lose any time. But we've had a lovely life, a happy life. We still love each other. And it's been a wonderful life supporting each other.
That is brilliant.
That was the romance, just because she thought I was a flirt.
That is brilliant. That is brilliant. That is a brilliant story. So, to wrap this all up, what are the takeaways from your book? What is it that you want people to know about you? What do you want people to feel? What do you want them to, especially young people, to know and to get from your book?
I want the young people to realize that what they come and see today didn't just happen. Mm-hmm. I want them to realize where we're coming from and all the things, notwithstanding all the warts on our country and the particular difficulties right now, but to realize where we have come from. They don't know the history. And what, I mean, when Jamaica got independence, 50% of our country was illiterate.
Yes.
They don't know all of this background. I want them to understand that background and to realize that we have a lot to be thankful for. Mm-hmm. The other thing I want them to do is to realize that it don't matter where you come from. It don't matter whether you're born in riches or out of, you don't have to be born in riches or a wealthy family in order to do well. You can do well if you're prepared to pay the price of hard work. You're prepared to pay the price of studying your profession and paying the price of hard work and working and caring with what you do and not do it just for money, because money can only do so much. Mm-hmm. What is really important is sharing your life and helping to make wherever you live a different place. Try and make a difference is what I keep.
As the book said, I tried to make a difference. And on that note, that is a wonderful note on which to end this amazing conversation with you. As I said, I've been honored to have you on my show. I am better for having spoken to you and read your book, because it is inspirational and it is truth. It was written just honestly and from the heart. Thank you so much for the gift of you to Jamaica, the gift of your life and your talent and all that you have given to Jamaica, and the gift of this book that will live on long after for people to know and to learn and to appreciate from. Thank you very much for being here.
You're most welcome. And I'd just like to add that all proceeds from the book goes to the Danny Williams Scholarship Fund at Jamaica College to give scholarships to needy boys, bright, needy boys. And this year alone, we gave 30 scholarships.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. And my readers will be able to find it, and watchers, will be able to find it on Amazon, and it's all over the place. I know I got mine on Amazon. So ladies and gentlemen, you have got to get this book. It is worth it. It's a life of a true Jamaican icon who have a whole heap of letters behind his name that I can't call half of those letters. But yes, thank you very much. It has been my pleasure having you on Shelf Life.
Thank you.